All right, so Jamie, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing very well. Just like settling in. It's been a super nerdy morning. Been a lot going on this week, but in a fun way. So I'm looking forward to actually just focusing on talking about music and nerding out with you.
Me
So,
too. Me too. I can't wait.
cool. So I mean, I guess you've seen me kind of do a couple of brief outlines about your role in Low Island. Do you think I got it right, or if you're meeting one of your mum's friends at a family gathering, how do you explain to people what you do?
I mean, it's different, particularly with one of my mum's friends at a gathering. I have to just say, I'm a musician and keep it vague. But yeah, I suppose in Low Island, myself and Carlos write the songs. We all work on the arrangements and the sort of production ideas as a band. But I'm mainly the sort of producer, in the band, and now mixing the music and also in charge of the very involved and quite complicated live show production work. So yeah, that's not what I'd say to one of my mum's friends, but that's what I'm going to say to you and your friends.
There would be a lot of glazing over with your mom's friends on that one. So that's awesome. So you're thinking about everything from like the seeds of a song through to the delivery of the record, through to delivery of it into your audience's ears in person.
Exactly that. And it's great. I work in Ableton Live, which I'm sure won't be the last time that is mentioned on this conversation. But it's really great to be able to work all the way through the different stages of a song within the same building, in the same door, in the same software, because you can go all the way back to the first sort of demo of someone writing a song, and then we're all working on it together, and you can see the saves, and then we work on the mix, and then it comes out, and then it goes on Spotify, and then I'm able to sort of extrapolate some of these sounds and build like sampler instruments and stuff for the live show. So it's great. It's really wonderful being able to kind of, I don't know, helm the process across all the many different parts of a song's journey, I guess.
That's really amazing. I mean, since I guess since the more recent era of the band, where like the live setup is really kind of solidified and stuff, has the way that you think about writing music changed compared to many years ago? Like, do you have a different perspective on it now?
I think absolutely. I mean, particularly, it can get a bit cynical if you start to think about how songs have like performed or what they've done for your career or your profile while you're being creative in the studio, and I think that can lead to a bit of a dangerous sort of cynical territory. But I definitely think we have it in terms of, again, like playing live, knowing what's possible, knowing what didn't work, knowing what we should avoid, because it's very much like, yeah, I mean, we've been around for 5 years and we play shows. All of the songs that we've built is very much like the four of us as producers and arrangers, rather than a drummer or a bass player, a guitarist, who sort of stay in their lane. We're all playing all the instruments, and we're all being arrangers, and we're all being producers. And sometimes that can make things difficult when we want to go and perform things live. And, this isn't unique to us. I think this is a very common modern problem where music is made in digital audio workstations, and then you've got to go and do it live with a small handful of people. So I think definitely on that sense, we are thinking about things in the studio of like, well, actually, look, it's not going to be possible because there's 50 guitar parts and there's only four of us. And so definitely along those lines, for sure.
So is that definitely like you're modifying that? Because I'm like Felix was telling us last time, it's really important to you guys that like when you're doing the videos and stuff that you can play the songs, and that there's the records, even though the songs might evolve live, it's still like a really good representation of what's happening. And when you do those performance videos, it wants to sound like the record, but it's live. So is that kind of like, is that a philosophical underpinning that you take to making records now, as opposed to just being like, I'm going to make the record and then we'll figure out a version for live?
Well, no, I mean, there will always be the last thing you just said, which is wonderful, because it's kind of like, it's shoot first, ask questions later, or maybe I didn't mean that, but like, you're in the studio, because it can be creatively limiting, inhibiting if you're just thinking, oh, okay, no, I know that sounds cool, guys, but we can't do that because of some problem 6 months from now. So there's always going to be the sense of like, we'll figure it out later. It's almost like it's not our problem, even though it will be our problem when we come to figure out the live show. But no, there's always a sense of that. But then there's also, just keeping it in the back of our mind, and also beyond just the kind of availability of, okay, so we've got 4 people on stage, each with two arms and 2 legs, and that's it. We and mouths to sing, and you can't really get much more represented out of that. But then there's also things just about like energy as well, like the flow of set lists and the kind of songs that you need in your show and what it feels like to play grooves at this kind of tempo and how the crowd react to it as well. It's not just like technical stuff from the live gigs that come back to become concerns in the studio. It's also just like having there were songs that when we started out, we would make them and be like, oh, this is really cool because it's cool kind of laptopy, headphoney thing, and you do it at a gig. And everyone's in the audience just kind of maybe not really feeling it. And you kind of learn like, okay, yeah, this X doesn't translate so well, or Y doesn't translate so well, or
And were you guys used to like DJ and stuff as well, right? Or you still do? So like, has that had an influence as well on how you arrange stuff, or just like the kind of real audience interaction side, or audience response, shall we say?
Yeah, so I went to university in Leeds. Shout out to anyone from or in Leeds in the chat. Up north in England, and I was studying music. And Carlos, who's also in the band, was down here in Oxford, where we're from, and he would come up, and we had a residency in a big club called the Warehouse in Leeds, and we would play house and techno. This is now, oh my god, this is 10 years ago when we were students. And and we were really, really into that music and making a lot of originals and stuff, and just really into that scene. And at the same time, we were in a kind of very guitar-y indie band, and both of those things, the DJing and the indie band, kind of stopped. And we made Low Island as a way to be like, well, whenever we were playing in the indie band live, we missed the kind of all-out rave energy of DJ sets, but whenever we were DJing, we missed the kind of real connection to songs and artists performing their own songs that you don't really get. So Low Island was definitely started as this kind of combination of indie guitar oriented music with the energy and euphoria of club music. And I think that's sometimes that's come back and forth from the fore, but it's always been there, and it's definitely in the latest 2 tracks we've put out this year for sure.
Amazing, that's great. So I guess like my next question is a little bit around like this transition from studio to stage. You glossed over it very briefly, but just before you came on, I completely failed to execute opening one of your instruments. So have you also wound up, like when you're thinking about how to play live, I guess anyone who's seen one of your performance videos will see that you have like the brain in a case, and you guys aren't afraid to build stuff around sequences, to play to sequences. You really like embrace electronic music and being locked into that world. So is there a kind of a process where you'll need to go through a whole multi-track once the song's done, figure out which bits are the most performative, and figure out this would be great if we could perform it, but you'll need to literally build an instrument to do it?
We're going deep now. This is it. Here we go. Yeah, it's like it takes a long time. Like we've just finished a whole bunch of music in October, and I had to kind of spend like 4 weeks in and around Christmas just like start. I've got a method now, and I've got a process, and it's like it's not just starting with the multi-tracks, because what I was talking about before is so great about working within the same software. Is like I've built lots of sampler instruments that sometimes, quite a lot we will use those. I guess they are soft instruments. They're not hardware, but they're sampled from hardware in our studio. And I've built these instruments and we're using them in our productions, but then I can also put them in the live show so people can play those sounds. Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely.
And we also have like a lot of hardware as well. But yeah, it kind of starts with you look at all of the layers of a song and you're like, okay, drum kit, that's covered. We got a drummer.
Incidentally, Felix just popped into the chat. Hi, Felix. Good to see you, man.
Oh, hello, Felix. At Leeds School of Ableton. Brilliant. I'm trying to read the chat as well whilst keeping my train of thought.
Okay, so we have a drummer. Yeah.
Yeah, we got it. We got a drummer. That's covered. We got someone who can play bass synth or bass guitar, sometimes both. And then we got myself and Carlos, who between us sing, play guitar, and various sort of keys and electronic things. And when you start, you mentioned earlier, like the need for things to represent the record and sound like the record. But sometimes when you get into a venue in a big room with a big sound system, there's so many little layers and stuff that you could just do without. You don't need them. And with more experience year on year, you get better and quicker at recognizing those parts. Often it's your sort of ambient incidental things that are great when you're listening to music on, streaming on headphones, on a record or whatever. But when you're in a big cavernous venue or even a small venue, it's totally different sonic, and you're it's not necessary. So yeah, going back to the source, you delineate who's going to play what, and then you just figure out okay, there's some stuff that might need to be sequencers or whatever. Our kind of approach is that ideally nothing should be making a sound that's like really obvious to the audience that no one on stage is accounting for it. Do you know what I mean? And they don't have to be producers, they don't have to be musicians. It's like my feeling is even like lay people at a concert can tell like something's not quite adding up here. Right. Like I can hear all these big lead lines and like no one's playing that on an instrument or something. So we definitely we avoid those parts being not coming from us. But yeah, it's a difficult thing, and also there's often like a lot of different options as to who can play what, because we're also multi-instrumentalists, and so yeah, it ends up in quite a head scratch rehearsal session where I say, okay guys, this is here we go, you can play it or I can play it or no one can play it, and we have to kind of approach that for each layer of every song. And
for each layer of every
sort
song.
Of
nice.
Yeah. Yeah. But the best thing is it's just stuff you don't need, and that's wonderful. Right. When it's like, great, yeah, I don't care it was on a record. We don't need the reverse cymbal going into the chorus or whatever.
So you kind of, it's almost like you get those big stones in place.
Oh,
you got like a rhythm section.
I've lost you. I've got you. I tell you what happened. My headphones came unplugged from my audio interface. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
This is a not to be missed stream, everyone. We're gonna learn so much about like making records, about how to handle audio in the internet era with Jamie from Low Island. So
yeah. Well, Jamie from Low Island, who can't even handle a headphone connection. I'm so sorry about that. I lost you for a second there. My headphones came unplugged.
I love it.
It's actually it's reminded me of a moment when we had a big headline show in London, and we had this big dramatic opening, and we came on stage, and it was the first song, and as we hit beat one of the chorus, boom, everything cuts, and we're all looking at each other, and we're like, oh my god, this is the whole audience like, we can't hear, everything's gone.
Yeah.
And I went and looked over, and the connection between our audio interface and our big brain rack box had just come out half an inch from the laptop, and just everything.
Oh my god.
So this headphone moment just there is giving me horrible sort of trauma memories of that. So.
Okay, well, this is a wonderful opportunity
to
get really practical, right? I understand that your system is very elegant, and I'd love to unpack it, but like, that's a really amazing example. You have like your entire show going through kind of, consumery little connections and stuff like that. So was that just a one-off and it's just the one time it happened, or do you have you had a process or any other lessons that you've gone through in terms of being able to make sure that your live brain, your Sonic HAL 9000 or whatever is reliable?
Yeah, a lot of trial and error. I mean, there's also we don't have like the biggest budget in the world, and there's a lot of stuff that just costs a lot of money, like AB rigs and redundancy and all this stuff, which is basically people spending many thousands of pounds because of fear and panic, and they're spending thousands of pounds on things that you hope will never come into use, like a little switcher thing. So we can't afford that kind of stuff, so we have to find other ways to just make sure that we can perform and enjoy the show and make sure it works. And yeah, it's been very much like an accumulative thing that has developed over 5 years of releasing music and playing shows. I think I want to say like 3 years ago, I got this big wheeled rack case, and it's fantastic for us because we've got the computer with Ableton, with all of our hardware and stuff on stage running into that, and then 20 different outputs running to the front of house. We've got our MIDI interface that can be this great kind of junctioning central hub for all of the MIDI ins and outs on stage. We also have we've got some hardware compressors to be like in front of the audio interface for any of our hardware synths on stage. And then also like within the same box, which is great for touring, smaller venues like we do, we have like in-ear monitoring wireless systems for like each person in the band. So you rock up at a venue and there's this big box, and you take the doors off, and each band member has like a loom, which is like 10 to 15 cables inside one thing, and you just pass it out and you're like, there you go, plug your stuff in. Wow. And you've immediately sort of connected all of the like disparate hubs on stage through this kind of central junctioning box brain thing. And I've had to run over to it many times during a sound check. I mean, also I should mention there's an aesthetic point as well, which is that we don't want people to see like a laptop. You see the Apple logo on stage again, and even the layperson is like, okay, great, I'm now going to hear loads of stuff that I'm not seeing, and I'm sort of, you feel a little bit disconnected. So we wanted to like hide that inside a rack unit and keep it off stage and keep it about the people on stage playing instruments and performing, rather than like, oh well, here's a laptop, and you kind of your disbelief sets in.
Wild. Okay, so can we like, you've given us a really good like overview of what's going on in that box. Can we get like hyper specific? So if we go for like your station, what's going in and out of your loom? And I'm assuming, are you like kind of running the computer and stuff like that, so you're still triggering stuff and
yes,
go on the set and everything?
So so actually Felix, the drummer, who's graced your Twitch recently, so he's in charge of transport, so location markers for songs. So I always don't know where to start with these things. So my rig, we're going to talk about my rig.
Let's start with your rig.
If I start talking about something else, you sound the alarm, and
we'll forgive you, buddy.
Talk about my rig. So yeah, it's like a flight case thing, because again, early on we were doing shows, and you'd show up and you'd be like, well, I've got these different synths, and it's kind of like building a guitar pedal board on stage in a sound check. And we were doing shows, and it's like you've got 10 minutes to get into the venue and set up and perform. So I was like, okay, everything needs to be inside a big flight case so that you can just put it down, take the lid off, and and plug in the connections and the power that you need, and that's it. But everything therein is already hooked up, rigged up, etc. So in my rig is an Arturia Keylab MIDI keyboard / controller. So that allows, and that MIDI is running not to any of the stuff in my rig, which I'm going to get to. It's going straight to the central brain. We'll call it the brain, the rack box for our live shows. So I've got a MIDI keyboard. MIDI's going straight to the brain, and then it's coming back all the way, back up the loom down a different MIDI cable in order to play. I've got a Dave Smith Instruments Prophet 8 synth. So that's for my like hardware synth sounds and sequences and things like this. Oh look, I can see you've got a little video going.
Yeah, trying to be
brilliant. There you go. That's fantastic. Look, you'll get a wonderful view of it soon, and as the camera comes around. But yeah, so I've got a MIDI keyboard. I've got a Dave Smith Prophet 8 module, because I don't need it to be the keyboard. Yeah. And that's the big thing. If you pause it sometime around the corner, that's the big thing to the left is the Prophet synth. That one. And then So that yellow synth is a Dave Smith Mofo, which is the. Oh, sorry, I can see where you're pointing your mouse. All right, now, I've got my. Yeah, exactly. So that module thing is my Dave Smith Prophet 8, and so yeah, even though the keyboard that I'm playing is right next to it, it's going 10 meters down a loom into our big brain, which is at the bottom there, into the MIDI interface, into Ableton, because I might want to be playing soft instruments or whatever, all the way back out the MIDI interface, up the loom, into my Prophet. So it's quite a long journey,
and then back out, and then back in, right?
And then exactly, and then the audio. We haven't even got to the audio yet. The audio is going from the Prophet down the loom into the audio interface, We've got two Focusrite Claret 8 pre USB audio interfaces, which gives us 16 hardware inputs and 20 outputs, which is great for front of house because they get a lot of things in stereo and a lot of separation. So there we go. I already went off topic. We're
That's
on
all
my
good. That's all good.
So I've got that, and yeah, so that's keys and controller. It's also got sample pads, so I can play like drum rack samplers in Ableton, which is wicked. Those are some of my favorite things to do. And I can play soft instruments. The really exciting thing, because as you can see, there's someone, the bass player has got a Dave Smith Mofo, which is a monophonic synth, and Carlos, the lead singer, has got a Korg Minologue, which is a similar, I think it's 4-voice, so it is polyphonic, quadraphonic, should we say.
Okay.
And the cool thing about having MIDI set up the way we do is that all of us can play each other's keyboards as well. So there's moments where my left hand will be playing the Mofo, which is the bass player's kind of bass monosynth, and my right hand will be playing my Prophet and simultaneously a soft sound inside Ableton, and it'll be playing an arpeggiator on the Minologue because Carlos is busy singing and with a tambourine or playing the guitar or whatever. So it's the same for everyone else. There's like a song where the bass player is able to like play a bass sound with his left hand, and with his right hand he's playing something on the Minologue. So this is the kind of wonderful flexibility that you get from having this kind of central hub where like everything goes in and out of there, nothing bypasses it, and it means that you can kind of junction and redirect things as you go through the show. Coming back to my rig, so we've got the keys, we've got the Mofo, and then basically I have like a big rig of effects pedals, mainly kind of designed for guitars, I guess, with a Korg Chaos pad. So it's kind of mono in through a few pedals, like some really crazy filter pedals, and like I don't know if you're familiar with like Red Panda effects, but they're like an amazing. Okay. It's like amazing kind of glitching tape things that can kind of play with time in this like elastic and randomized way. Like I love things where you have LFOs and randomization, and everything can just kind of morph and evolve, sometimes without you having to do it manually. So all of that stuff to the right and along the top next to the synth is effectively like a huge relay of effects. And on my, this is the lethal part, and it goes wrong. It goes wrong all the time, but I enjoy it. On my keyboard, the faders on my Arturia Keylab allow me to send whichever instrument or device on stage through those effects. Amazing. So basically, it's like a massive aux send, if you like, of effects, like crazy stereo stuff. You just kind of turn the pedals on and be like, okay, lead vocal, here we go. And I pull the fader up, and that's basically turning the send up inside Ableton through this outboard hardware effects rig. And it's out of control. Like it's out of control. Like sometimes you send like the hi-hats through it, or the bass guitar, and you'll get this kind of bird song coming back at you, and people on stage looking at me like, what the hell is that? Stop that. but yeah, so that, I think that is my rig. That's like the first floor, we say ground, and then on the ground floor is the same size of that, which is not, it wasn't in use in this video because I wasn't playing any guitar. It's a pedal board that's pretty much exactly the same size as that, which is for my guitar.
Is there a video we should pull up to have in the background with that in there?
There's one, if this is on YouTube, that I'm trying to think of a good one, which is What Do You Stand For, right, which we did for Amazon. Okay. There's a session of that. It's in a big white room, which is why I suggest it, because it's actually a great video to see the whole rig, because it kind of looks like we're in nothingness. We're just in like white
there you
void.
Go. Oh,
you see? Do you see what I mean? You get a real good look at everything there.
All right. Damn. We are getting.
This is the video.
Nerdy. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow.
And I can add one more thing if we want to go. If we want to get really in depth.
That's why we're here. Yeah, let's do it.
That's why we're here. Okay. I normally get told not to go so in depth, but so I'm a sucker for a mod wheel, right? I love a mod wheel on a synth. The reason being that just like with one gesture of the hand, particularly like on my Dave Smith and on my Dave Smith Prophet 8 and on the Mofo, you can have like 4 to 5 different things changing in different directions. Like the filter goes up, the release goes up, the LFO amount, or things move in like different directions. And it's just like with one gesture. So on my rig, I've got basically like you get like expression pedals as a guitarist for effects pedals. You might have like a delay pedal, and you can get an expression pedal like a wah. You move your foot on it, and it's basically moving a bunch of knobs from one position to another. I don't need that on the ground, so what I have on my rig is these knobs that will basically like turn all of the knobs on a certain pedal from one position to another. Can you see there? If you pause it there,
yeah,
just above my...
I want to see actually if I can...
yeah.
Hang on.
You paused it at the right place.
You're going to love this. You're going to love... Oh, no, hang on. 1 second, everyone. This is going to be internet gold right here. Okay.
That's quite... Oh, look at that. I fit perfectly. I'm going to make the same face.
There we go.
Please screenshot that. But no, what I was on about before was, between, like in front of the Dave Smith synth module there, you can see these like big knobs. And basically like you turn one of those knobs and all of the parameters on one of those effects pedals will like sweep from one place to another, which
That's
is like...
these guys here, right?
It's
So your
those
pedals
big
actually
things
have like MIDI control as well?
It's effectively MIDI control, but it's like it's a sort of
expression.
It's a kind of
thing.
CV. Yeah, it's an expression thing. But it's really cool in the studio because like you're using a piece of hardware. You would never get like 10 people in the room to be like, okay, everyone turn these knobs from this place to that. But with this thing, you can set it, and it's just like pulling apart audio or kind of messing with delays and stuff. So it's a really cool, not just live, but like as a creative tool, where you're working on music and you don't know what result you want, you don't know what you're looking for, and you just run things through this like crazy orbit of stereo effects, and then you can just turn these knobs, and with each knob you're changing like 12 things in different directions and stuff.
So it sounds a little bit like, it's not like you go, oh, I'm going to play a G sus7 chord on a keyboard. It's like you're gonna fire something through it and like kind of like invite a bit of chaos to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes you have to play a G sus7, and sometimes, especially at a show where you're not jamming or being creative, you've decided how the things go. But yeah, I mean, just with those effects, it took quite a long time of finding the right combination of things. But it can just be really exciting. It also like just sending one kind of zeroed out patch from the Prophet synth. You play one note and it's just bang, just sawtooth. There's no envelope or anything, and you run it through that stuff, and it's just carnage. It's just great. I mean, or it's not, and it's just a little slapback delay or something. I mean, even just the Chaos Pad on its own is like an incredible expressive tool for effects. Having that effectively sat at the end of this rig of like, like I really love, and I can't get over it, like really high resonance bandpass filters moving randomly. Do you see? You know what I mean? Like an LFO that's basically moving where a filter is randomly, but it's just a bandpass, really high resonance, and effectively you get these kind of beautiful resonant drones, but you have no idea where it's going to pop up and what thing it's going to boost. And so I basically had to find a pedal. I was like, I need a pedal that's like a Moog synth filter. And I know you can get those Mooga Fuga things as well, but I've got this what are they called? Snazzy Effect is that huge yellow pedal in the middle of my rig there. But that's really exciting as well, because you can play a chord and you run it through that, and it's these resonant peaks just kind of jumping up in an unexpected way. Kind of boosting different partials of the notes you're making.
And so do you have like the whole drum kit going through your brain as well? Like, does it go through live before going in front of house?
So the drum kit is like it's the only thing that's difficult. Our guitars used to be, natural as well, like just going into amps, but now we have like, well, we might get to that later, but no, the guitars run through. The drums, they don't go into Ableton and then on to front of house. So what you hear at a show or what you hear in these live videos is the drum mics going direct to source.
Cool.
But because of our clever but sometimes temperamental in-ear monitoring system, because we don't, we didn't want to get to festivals and be like, oh, there's the monitoring engineer, we're going to have to ask, oh, we want this up, we want this down. Yeah. We have an in-ear system which is inside Ableton. It's return tracks, and every single sound in the show is is kind of automated, the level that it gets sent to our ears and stuff. But then the problem was, we were like, this is great, we can hear everything, but we can't hear the drums. So we basically have like a little secret mic somewhere in the kit that picks up a decent amount of everything that goes into Ableton just to get sent to our ears, but actually it's going to front of house. There's a few other things like that as well, like the bass guitar. The bass guitar, it doesn't go into Ableton and then on to front of house. It goes into Ableton. It gets split effectively. Okay. It goes into Ableton, so we hear it, but then it also gets split and goes straight to front of house. But there's no Ableton processing on the bass guitar effectively. But for most of the things like the synths, it's absolutely going into Ableton and then on to the front of house speakers.
I gotta say, like, I know this is your first time on Twitch, but I've been streaming on here for a couple of years, and we just had like the biggest blow up in the chat ever just when you were describing what was going on there. So people are really appreciating it, and we're getting I don't know if you've seen the up pointy accent, like everyone's saying we are gearheads here for details. So like 100% people are.
Oh, wonderful! Fantastic! That's the word.
So before we get into the next kind of phase of the rig, Mario Tavares is asking, can we hear a story about when all of it goes wrong?
I mentioned a story earlier about basically the cable that connects the whole rig to the laptop being nudged because of the amount of sub in the venue, being nudged 1 inch out,
got sub
and just
shaken
the whole
out. thing.
Yeah, the sub. Yeah. So what we did the next day is we did what they do with record vinyl turntables in some clubs, which is you get tennis balls, you cut them in half, you put a concrete slab on the tennis ball halves, so all of the vibrations are like absorbed by it, and then you have the computer on top of that slab. That's the lengths we went to the next day at the show, because
wow.
we didn't want that to happen again. I'm trying to think of that we played Glastonbury in 2019, and it was like record-breaking heat wave in the UK, and we were performing it. Obviously, it was quite an important show to us because it was our first time playing at Glastonbury, and Ableton started jumping around the session. I'm not joking. Yeah, it started jumping around the session because it was overheating. So now, after that, we have like some temperature control fans in the rack, and every time these things happen, it's like, okay, what do we do so that never happens again? Oh, we need to buy a fan. Okay, great. Like,
so I mean, with like the vibration stuff, the brain box. Now I'm going to call it the brain box. Does that have all
the brain box
vibration dampening stuff in there?
Yes. So actually, I'm just trying to think. That story I was telling when the cable came out of the laptop was when we just had, it was much simpler, the brain box. It was like a little carry 5U rack thing with like audio interface, MIDI interface. We weren't doing in-ear monitors, and the laptop would just sit on top on the floor, plugged in, and that's when the sub thing came out. So now in this wheeled rack thing, it's all like vibration sealed around the edge, so we can rattle people's rib cages with sub as much as we like, and the laptop's going to be okay.
Awesome. That's great.
Touch wood.
There's a big question people are keen on, which is like how you deal with latency from all these connections. So any tips as well? I mean, I'm guessing you have to run that at super low buffers.
Yeah, so I don't think we can do, just trying to remind myself, I'm actually opening my own Ableton. The main thing that we did to make a difference with that was we had to fork out for a dedicated live show laptop, which it doesn't even have email on it. It doesn't have it just has Ableton, any relevant plugins, although actually for keeping latency down, we try to use native Ableton plugins rather than like Waves or, Omnisphere or any, that kind of stuff. So yeah, native plugins, dedicated laptop with nothing else on it apart from the show file. That made a huge difference. And then we also, I'm just trying to see where's my Ableton gone. We also run it at 48K, but the buffer size, I think we get away with 64 samples but it's right on the edge sometimes.
Okay.
it's right on the edge, but yeah, that's how we keep latency down.
And then
I'm
with
just trying to
with the Focusrite stuff, right? Does that have its own separate monitor mixing thing, or are you still monitor mixing through live? Because you're saying you got automation on there, right?
Yeah, it's all through live. I mean, it's literally the focus. So we've got two Focusrite Claret 8 pre interfaces, and they're just to get things in and out. They're not doing anything clever apart from being chained together as like an expansion pack, but they're not doing anything clever, and we're not hearing anything that they have to contribute. It's all happening in Ableton, and obviously, like, yeah, that comes with latency, but there's like just so many learning curve things that I think will be really useful, because it's a big problem when you are running that much stuff. Like, for people who use live, there's a really wonderful, clever trick you can use when you have all of your soft instruments or effect racks. You can organize them in a chain with like a chain selector, but also you can arrange it so that only the things that are selected are on, right? Because what we effectively had was a live show with like, okay, I've got all of my effects. I'm just using my Prophet as an example. I've got my Prophet synth, and it needs to run through this chain with all of these effects for this song. And then the next song, it's the next chain down with all these effects. But all of those effects were on all the time, wherever we were playing in the show. And the same goes for any other sound, etc., etc., etc. So then what we realized that we needed to do was make it so that only the chain that is in use is on. So all of these effects that gradually will put a workload on the CPU, they are off when they're not in use, and that's like hugely helped us with bringing the CPU down. And it's all the sort of Ableton chain selector racks. It's instrument racks and effects racks using the chain selector, and you can basically set it with like mappings so that only the selected thing is on. So I suggest people go and do that if they're in the live show business.
Amazing. And then when you're like, do you have, if there's, I mean, we'll get on to Felix's thing, but he's running locators. Do they just automatically send messages to activate stuff, or do you manually have to switch stuff off and on depending on what song you're on as well?
No, so I should have said this a while ago. In terms of, we don't use Ableton in the session view, we use it in the arrangement view, as in the one that's more like all of the other digital audio workstations. You can use it in the session view. This is in my opinion. If your show is like quite improvised and jam-like and sort of like, I don't know, Fortet or other kind of live shows, electronic artists, and particularly Fortet's a good example, someone who doesn't have to communicate with one or more people on stage, totally. Like, are we ready to go to the next bit or whatever, and you just want to wing it, then I think session view is awesome, and it's fantastic, and it's just great that like everything is kind of looped, and that's great. When you are a band who make kind of alternative pop music and songs, things are set, then the arrangement view has been the way that we want to work things, and it also just allows you to like automate a lot more in quite a fixed way than you would be able to if you use session view. So basically, if you looked at our session, it's like 100 weeks long or something. It's like this session that's just incredibly long, and then you see these tiny little sort of lines every once in a while, and you zoom in like you're zooming in from space, and then it's like, oh, there's a song, because we basically just have like hours of silence between each track. It's my worst nightmare is we get to the end of a song and then it just runs on, and you're and it's playing the next song, which might not even be in the set list for the show. So we have big gaps between each song. We have location markers for the start of the start of the song, which might be the count in before it, and the various sections of the song, because it's quite useful in rehearsals. And someone says, can we run it from the last chorus? I need some, take it to the bridge. Take it to the chorus. So I need to know where that is. But Felix, the drummer, has a Roland SPD SX drum pad, and we're basically not using that for audio. We're using that as like a MIDI device, so he can like scroll to the next song of the show, hit like a location marker, and Ableton will go to that marker, and then he can press play. What's also really cool is He doesn't have to press stop and play. It can already be playing, and you hit that marker for the next song, and it will go in time, in sequence to that song. So we've had loads of like wicked moments in shows where we were able to like play one song and it's a big build up, and then boom, it goes to the next one like on beat, and there's no gap. And you can do that kind of, again, coming from the club DJ set thing of like merging the songs in your show. It gives us all of that creative possibility, which is great. But yeah, effectively he hits the marker at the start of the song and it will play. There's also moments where, you know, there's like a big crazy instrumental outro or something where everyone's just going mad and I'm ruining the show with my effects pedals or whatever. And sometimes we're like, well, we don't know if we want it to be 8 bars or 16 bars or 12 bars or, you know, 15 bars, whatever. It's 17 and a half bars. So sometimes we kind of just have a section, because we can't like loop in arrangement view unless it was like a one-off, because you can't kind of move where that is without being at the laptop. And that's the big thing about our show, is that no one is ever meant to be near the laptop or operate the laptop. Right. So sometimes we'll have like a section of a song that is like 5 minutes long, like longer than it would ever be. And then there's a location marker at the end for the next section or the end or whatever. And Felix is able to, like, you know, we have a bit of eye contact and it's spontaneous and it's improvised. And he's able to hit that marker when we're all like, okay, we're ready to go on to the next bit. Or sometimes we've lost Carlos crowd surfing. And he's and he's out in the crowd, and it's like, well, he's got to sing in the next section, but he's not here yet. So we just sort of keep vamping and and get security to bring him back, and then Felix can sort of hit the marker for the next thing. So that is effectively how we do the transport for the show.
That's really smart. Love it. How are you feeling? Do you want to get on to another station? We've covered. I mean, is that everything that's happening in Felix's world?
Yes, there's one other important aspect. So on the SPDSX thing, like sometimes you make a record and there's like crazy sounds on the snare drum or effects or kind of weird stuff that, I mean, this is mainly to do with like kick and snare or like some electronic sounds or something that you might have made. You can't do it with a drum kit, but you have a drummer. So he has his Roland thing, but you can also get these little trigger sensors that you can attach to. Yeah, they're quite hard to see because they're very like discrete little things. But there's a good moment. There's a song called I'm trying to think actually, but I mean, he's using it all the time, and there's triggers.
That guy there, right?
There you go. Yeah. So you can see there it is, exactly. So he's got one on the snare, one on the kick. He also has like an independent kick pedal that hits a sensor, so when he wants to do something that isn't also the acoustic kick drum, it's actually just its own thing. And then he also has like a big rubber pad, which again, it's like I want to hit something that makes a sound, but it's not also hitting an acoustic drum. Okay. All of those sounds used to be.
That's that guy in there.
Yeah, exactly. And that thing with the cross on it. So sometimes you hit that and it'd be like a white noise, or something else. It's effectively like his sampler. Like everyone in the band should be able to just play. You know, I've got my 4x4 sampler buttons, and everyone has to be able to just basically play back a little recording of something at some point. But he used to have his SPDSX with like audio samples loaded into it, and these triggers would be playing off that, and it was great, and there was no latency. But what we realized is it would be so much better if there were just drum racks in Ableton and it was all MIDI. And it would have the ability to like change what his snare drum was playing mid-song when he's not able to like reach over and, you know, dial in on the SPDSX. So actually, he's now uses an SPD and it's completely MIDI. There's no audio coming out of it. And then the triggers on the drums run down his Loom MIDI cable into the MIDI interface into Ableton. And then he's got like a little drum rack thing with different drum kits for each song, and sometimes like, and there's one song where he's got 4 different drum kits that it moves between, like for the verse, the chorus, the bridge, you know, and he wouldn't be able to do that kind of reaching over and dialing in on the SPDS. So that, I think that, and that's the whole of the drummers universe. I can go on to the other two if that's interesting.
Let's do it. I mean, you mentioned the Mofo.
Yeah. This is brilliant. Look, you just wait for the camera to come around and you hit pause, and then we get a good look at him. There we go.
Yeah, and thanks, Stephen, for the frame forward and backward. I had no idea about that. So.
Oh, that's good. I didn't know about that either. Thank you. Was it Stephen?
Stephen, DJ Empirical, yeah.
Nice. Shout out. Thank you.
Who is working on a if the knife was Low Island or if Low Island was a knife version for the remix contest.
Nice.
Yeah. Let's
Well,
try on the other side actually. See if.
Oh, look at this. You can just shift through it.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh,
the
come on,
camera's
come on.
gonna turn
Okay,
left.
there
Come
we
on,
are.
come on. I wish it was interactive.
Totally.
There you go. You get sort of a good look at it. But yeah, he's got monophonic Dave Smith Mofo analog synth, which is wicked, by the way. Yeah, they've got. I mean, my Prophet 8 is effectively just like an 8 voice of the same thing. But the sequences on there like blew my mind and changed my life, changed my world. The step sequences on those, I'm sure they're just as good or better on many other synths. But I had a great 2019 getting deep into those sequences. So he's got the Mofo, he's got MIDI outs going into our brain, into Ableton, because sometimes he's got to play sampled sounds, instruments that I've built that are soft inside Ableton. He's also got audio outs going into Ableton so that we can, have the Mofo, which is great. And he's also got MIDI in. Everyone has MIDI in for like program changes. So, when we get to the next song, it will, rather than like between songs, just seeing 4 guys on stage, like twiddling a knob, looking menu diving. It's not it isn't the sexiest thing in the world. So like we just send program changes to everyone's outboard hardware and just make sure that they're on the right song at the right time. So he's got that, and then he also plays the bass guitar and has a little pedal board for that as well. And then Carlos
actually,
is kind of
quick question as well.
Oh yeah.
Someone's just confirming. I think you mentioned, but you have count-ins in your ears, right? So for songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's not super sexy, but it's the best way to allow us to like bring what we put together in the studio to life on stage. Some people could be like, oh, it's cheating because it's on click track or whatever. But ultimately you are bound by the way your music was made. If you're the Kinks and there's 2 guitars, bass, drums, and you're in a rehearsal room, like it's great. That's you've written it, you've recorded it, and that's how you're going to do it live. But like, we are not. We are very much people who work in studios. We are like producers and arrangers. We're often just sat around and like one person's playing a piano, one person's playing a guitar, and we're all just like mucking in. So it's not like it's kind of music that is written with someone sat at the drums, someone playing the bass, someone playing the guitar, and that's very easy to translate to a live show. So there's like a lot of other stuff that needs to be represented and taken care of, and so that's kind of why we have to have it all a little bit locked in to a degree, but with like I was saying before, making sure that all of the important parts and stuff are really being played by people, and there's like a real energy and excitement to it. So we have count-ins.
Okay, great. And actually, CIV Music, our friend Zach up in Calgary, has a question. I've had issues or even feedback that when I'm playing live, I'm playing to my IEM. Do you guys struggle with that or have a way around it?
Totally. The biggest one. So, I mean, it used to just be Carlos and Felix. So Carlos is the lead singer there on the right, and Felix the drummer. It used to just be them that were plugged into IEMs, and myself and the bass player Jacob would just have a monitor wedge. We wouldn't be like hearing anything secret like count-ins and stuff like that. So it meant that the drummer would always have to like hit the hi-hat in the breakdown or something, because like we couldn't hear the click track there. But now we're all on in-ears, which is great because it means that you can have these big suspenseful moments with no drums, without anyone having to keep time. But sometimes what can happen is people are like nodding, even though there's no tempo. Like for people in the audience, there's no drums, there's no groove, but people are kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of nodding like that, and it's a bit telling. So maybe that's what Steve is talking about in terms of like you're playing to your IEMs. I mean, and also depending on like how, I'm not an expert with IEMs, but depending on how isolated they are, you really can feel like you're in a vacuum. Like, you see a big crowd of people and there's like someone smashing the drums and everything in your ear just sounds incredibly under control and like anodyne. And so that can be really hard as well to try and get some vibe in. Carlos will often just take one ear out and just like feel the room, because it can be a little bit vacuum packed.
Right.
I'm still getting used to it myself, to be honest.
Have you guys ever messed around with having a dedicated like room mic that feeds back in?
No, but now that we're all on in-ears and we have that like little, we call it like the crotch mic, because it's like a little bit near the drummer's crotch that picks up the drum kit, and so that it allows us to hear the drums. Because otherwise, like, that's another thing. Like, you could just be like, well, why aren't you just playing to the click track? But you're not getting the groove and the nuance and the feel of the drummer. So it meant that we were able to hear, the drum kit, and also just like feel the excitement, because he's an incredible drummer, etc. But because of that microphone, it picks up a little bit of the room that kind of clues us in. And also we have our vocal mics, but they're pretty super hyper crazy cardioid and kind of like focused, and try and shut everything else out of it. But through the drummer's mic that we get in our ears, we're able to hear a decent amount of vibe, which is nice. It's also quite nice in the green room before a show. You turn your ears on, and you can kind of hear the venue and hear the room and hear like the conversations of people in the front row, even though you're not in the room, which is quite fun.
That's not at all creepy.
No. Yeah, I didn't mean like listening in like kind of spies, just kind of like you can hear the room. Yeah,
I got you. Totally.
Yeah, I sat there with my headphones listening.
Okay, Zach's just saying he tends to tap his foot in time with a click, finds himself doing an ambient sections, and looks a bit silly as well. Cool.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah, you have to hide that.
Cool. Zach, is that all helpful in terms of like actionable stuff for you? And I remember you were saying as well, Jamie, that you guys like automate your monitor mixes. Have you wound up like automating click levels at different points or anything like that? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because it's so great, because you plug it in, you plug in your ears, and it's like, I know that keyboard sound is going to get louder in the chorus. And it's particularly important for Carlos. We spend a lot of time on it because he has got a lot of like high demand vocals to deliver, and so he needs to make sure that everything is the stakes are high for him, less so for other people. So like, we spend a lot of time making sure that everything's right, and we automate it. It's like, this song or your keys patch is a little bit loud, so can I have that up a little bit? And you can, because you're in session view, you're just drawing lines across the whole show. So that is, we have 4 return tracks in Ableton, and I'm just automating what is sent to them when and how much across the show. And those 4 return tracks is one for each band member. They all go to different outputs in the big brain, into some not the most expensive millions of pounds like Sennheiser or whatever. They're LD systems, LD, but they work perfectly good for us. And then the audio feeds into that, and then it's wireless and hits us on stage. Yeah, amazing. I think that.
Wow.
In Spain, yeah.
That's dope. All right, should we continue the journey around? We're just wrapping up Carlos's rig, and then I want to talk to you about like how you do your vocals and everything as well after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Carlos's rig is not dissimilar to like mine, but like less involved, and I guess it's more similar to Jacob's. So he's got a guitar, as you can see there, with a pedal board, and then he has a Korg Minilogue, which is a 4-voice synth, which you can see there on the left. Oh, the camera's lost him.
There we go.
He'll come round again. Yeah. There you go. That's a good shot. There you go. So he's got the Korg Minilogue there, which he can play, and the guitar. He's actually retired the Arturia Beat Step, which was on the top, which was awesome actually, because it allowed him to just hit the pads as like a live sampler. Like I was saying before, like sometimes you want to play a sound that isn't kind of keyboard based, it's just pads. So he was able to do that, but also it's got like really creative and advanced sequencers, which can send sequences out to like different CV or different, I mean, we don't use CV, but different MIDI things. So he was able to like run and jam and dial in sequences. And because the beat step was going into our central hub, it was like playing a sequence on every synth on stage.
Whoa.
Which is crazy. And then we were like we would just like turn the knobs or something, and it's awesome. It's like this wicked like network system on stage where like, okay, you're dealing with the notes coming in and I'm dealing with the sounds and I'm messing with the LFOs and whatever. But anyway, he doesn't use that anymore because we thought, as you can see from this video, like we set up like this where we're all facing each other for videos, but like at live gigs, it doesn't really work because it means someone's got their back to the audience. So we sort of set up in a line, and we felt like there was too many huge flight casey things on stage. It kind of felt like you were sort of at the back of a studio. So now Carlos has just got the Minilogue on a stand, and as you can imagine, it's much more discreet. I still have the huge thing. I'm never giving it up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Nice. And you mentioned you're using like if you need amp sims and stuff, you're running those in live as opposed to physical amps, or
well, that we're not running them in, so actually the guitars are stereo. I know people use soft amps, they use Kempers. I don't know, I mean, like the guitarists in your on the chat will be familiar with that. People use Kempers, spend a lot of money on Kempers or whatever. What me and Carlos actually use, which you can get for like $200-300 or pounds, I don't know what the difference is a Strymon Iridium, which is like a small pedal you can hold in one hand, black, and it's an amp modeler, and you can it's very simple. There's no like crazy deep dive menu stuff. It's very simple. It's like you choose between 3 heads of an amp, and for each head you can choose 3 different cabinets: bass, middle, treble, gain, level. Really simple. It's also got MIDI in though, so you can save loads of different settings. So like from one song to another, from one section of a song to another, you can have an entirely different amp setup, but it's very simple on the face of it, and it's hardware, but it's line out. So there's no amps on the back of the stage with microphones also picking up everything else. It's completely line in. It goes to the brain, and a bit like the bass guitar I was talking about before, it gets fed into Ableton just to go to our ears, but it gets split and goes to front of house. So the guitars that you hear at a show or on the video, they are not going through Ableton. In fact, they for most people, they're nothing to do with Ableton, but for us, it gets split. Why split? So that otherwise we can't get things in our ears because we're being horrible. We're shutting everyone out. Like, no monitoring engineers, no front of house, don't bother. We're okay. It's sorted, because you get let down too many times. And
it's true. It's true.
So that's why we've created this very insular, sort of locked up little system. Nice. But it's very comforting because you can walk on stage outdoors at a big festival or in a tiny venue, and you plug your ears, and it's like, it's okay. Like, no, I'm not trusting a stranger here. It's us.
Or blaming a stranger either, right?
Or blaming it. Yeah, I mean, we've had that as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. So big question. You mentioned 3 magic words in passing there, like front of house. How do you know what the hell's going on out front? Do you have someone who's mixing for you, or do you kind of trust that it's all going to come together?
Yeah, we've worked with the same sound engineer who's actually recently moved on to do something else, which is sad. But we've worked with him from like our first show until last autumn. And so we would do like production rehearsals, and we did that thing where like you play, he records it into the desk, and then you can stand out front and they play it back, but you're still able to sort of mix things and discuss it and stuff, and obviously take your ears out then. So we would do like production rehearsals like that, make a lot of notes. What's really nice as well is because of all the stuff that is running through Ableton, like synths and whatever, or like any track stuff, whatever, is like, rather than be like, okay, so in this song you have to high pass that sound at 400 hertz or whatever, I can just go and do that at the source in the session. And it's like, in a way, it's really, you want the front of house engineer to be like almost like being creative, or reacting to any problems of the room, but not just like every night having to deal with like unnecessary problems, distracting their focus from what really matters, which is like enhancing and boosting the right things based on the new space that they're in that night. So that's how that's how we deal with it with the front of house. But I mean, like any band, we've got no idea how it really sounds out front, because even in those production rehearsals where we go and stand in the audience, in the venue and listen back, the room's empty. Huge kind of booming reverb. You're like, God, we sound shit. Oh my God. So it's, you know what I mean.
People listening to the show recording back in their like car the next day or on headphones or something afterwards, and
never ever listen to a desk bounce.
I've seen people trying to explain that to their artists over and over, like that's not what it sounded like.
No. Yeah, I can't think of an analogy, but it's literally like these are how I had the settings on the console reacting to a huge space. Now we've recorded a little left and right line out recording of the show, and you're listening to that, and it's like, well, it's not representative of anything, and everything will sound kind of dry and horrible. And
Totally.
I've never listened to those. Vocals just sound so bad, and I don't mean like the performance, just just the kind of limpness of like, it's not how it really was.
Totally.
But yeah, so for us, we're very lucky that we get to work with a front of house person, and then like in the tour van on the way from one show to the other, they can be like, and it's quite neat because they can be like, Jamie, there's that one patch in that one song that's like crazy loud, and rather than be like, well, we'll have to wait till we get everything set up in the venue, I can just like open the laptop in some instances and be like, okay, yeah, there it is. I'm going to pull the level down for that one. Problem solved. Awesome. While you were in transit between shows.
Great. And I mean, I'm guessing the answer is obvious, but I'd always wondered about that stuff. If you're having your monitor mixes kind of pre-programmed, like that's been consistent enough for you from night to night because you're controlling all the sources like top to bottom, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's all locked in. it's apart from my crazy effects end thing, which is it's like my defiant gesture, in the face of all of this security. And then you just have this, you've got this huge element of risk.
Love it. Okay, so
blows up in my face.
Super curious to know about how you're handling vocals, because you guys are really well known for like having pretty crazy vocal effects. How do you handle that live? And I mean, it's like we were saying before we came on, I'm pretty sure I could talk to you for 10 hours. So we might need to see if we can get you back another time, Jamie, to really talk about like records and stuff. But anyway,
I would love to. You just give me a call and I'll be there.
Okay, awesome. Well, okay. So in the meantime, like your vocal processing in your live rig, are you using kind of similar patches to what you're using in your mixes, or are you developing patches in the studio that kind of become critical to the character of the sound even as you're going?
So I can't believe I'm gonna have to bring this horrible horror story up a third time. But when that cable jiggled out of the laptop, it was 5 years ago at a big show, and everything cut out. At that point, we were running vocals through Ableton and onto front of house for like a little bit of extra EQ and compression, so it could get sent to Carlos's ears because I wasn't using it in ears at that point. And also we have other return tracks of like reverbs and delays, sometimes controllable by people on stage, like the feedback of a tape delay or whatever. Some things are automated, like big reverb throws on certain notes. And some of it can be done on the fly, some of it's drawn in. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. When that problem happened on stage and everything cut, we tried to talk to the audience and say, hey guys, so they couldn't hear anything because the audio interfaces had gone down. So basically what we realized we had to do, again, it's like the guitars and the bass guitars, is the vocals come out of the microphone, they get Y split. One way goes straight to front of house, nothing to do with Ableton, and the other way goes into Ableton so that we get it in our ears, but it also feeds return effects tracks. Does that make sense? So like you don't hear any source vocals from Ableton, but the vocals are running for our ears, and then I can draw in big reverb throws, effects throws. Sometimes the vocal gets sent to like a looper, so Carlos will sing and I'm using like my MIDI controller to play with an Ableton looper that's looping his voice. Again, that all has to be on a return track because there's the track at the top of our session with the vocals coming in and it just says sends only. It doesn't go to any output. It's a dead end if you like, and it just feeds our ears and then the effects returns. In terms of like, so I mean, that's kind of how it works, but in these like live videos that you're watching and stuff, I've mixed these, so I will be like getting the vocal chains that I use on the record and like trying to start with that as a reference, particularly when it comes to like spatial stuff like slapbacks, delays, reverbs and stuff, trying to like create a similar space on the vocal it can be very hard because you get a lot of drums into the vocal mic, so it involves sometimes like, and you use a gate and that's not enough because like some snare drums pop through, so I've sometimes had to draw like volume off and then draw it up for just every line of vocals. Do you see what I mean? Because the gate, it's not quite working in terms of like the separation, and in those videos, as you can see, we're all pretty close to each other. So yeah, the vocal processing on those things, like I start with my chain from the record version of the song and I can bring it through, and this is another example of why it's so great doing everything, the full 360 of like live version, performance video, writing a song, mixing a song, producing a song. It's all happening in the same thing, so I can just quickly grab that chain of effects and whack it on there and then tweak things because it was in a different room with a different mic, etc. I hope that's illuminating.
That's very, very illuminating. Yeah, because it's funny when we, when we first had you guys on for the beat battle, like we were playing. I can't remember which track it was we were playing, and there's just this big debate. Like, hang on, is that mine? Is that live? Is that? And then we kind of all realized, like, oh no, that is actually live. But it was like kind of stunning how similar the vocals sounded. And I mean, are you sneaking in any like BV layers or anything like that, and any points off playback, or do you try to keep it just totally whatever's happening in the room?
I mean, again, I really think like the guiding principle is like, how is it made? How was it made? Like, what was it like in the studio? And with us, a lot of the time in choruses, we will have a lot of doubling and like a big ensemble sound. It's not like Adele where it's a single lead voice in the chorus or whatever. It's like two of Carlos singing down the octave, panned left and right, two of Carlos singing falsetto, me singing two, a pair, double, down and up. And, it's like a big, thick ensemble sound. So it's like, okay, that's how it was made. Felix, the drummer, sings a bit. I sing backing, Carlos sings, but sometimes like that doesn't give you the kind of stereo thickness. So sometimes, I shouldn't say this, but sometimes very quietly in a chorus or something in the live version, we do mix in like some track vocals, but they come down the same channel that all of the vocal effects I was talking about before is. So often the front of house engineer has it pretty quiet because they want to get on with their own reverbs and delays that they will never stop doing no matter how much I ask. Because the amount of time we've done a show and there's just like a big dotted eighth delay on someone on something, and we're like, that ain't us, and you look out and it's like, oh, they're doing it again. They love it. It's their favorite thing.
Louder than the dry signal as well. Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got da 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 da. But like, so we do sometimes have it there, but it's fed in very quietly to a channel that by its nature is already pulled way down by the front of house person, which is the kind of vocal ambience section. So yeah, sometimes we have it in there just so that you get the ensemble feeling, but without being at the show and looking and be like, this sounds like a choir and there's one person. Like, you don't want to get to that moment where people, they just check out, even whether they realize they have or not. They're just like, I'm being swindled,
Right.
You don't want that.
Yeah, love it. How are you finding mixing? I mean, you've given us a little hint there on the vocal side, but how are you finding mixing these for the videos versus mixing for the record? And everyone, can we get some whys in the chat? Did everyone see like the chat that we had with Felix, who was talking about directing all of these live performance videos? And the fact that I mean, obviously then Jamie, you're mixing two versions of the track. Have you driven yourself crazy by the time you're doing the live one? How much of it can you carry over, or do you have to go faders down? I mean, you've said you pull stuff in from previous sessions, but what's that process like for you? And then even like, I want to talk a bit bigger picture meta, like, all four of you are handling multiple roles. You're not just playing in a band. So how do you find like just juggling all these different aspects, even though they're all within the music realm?
Okay, well, dealing with the first point first, like, I shouldn't say this, but like, I'm most of the time happier with the live version than the recorded version. Like, I know they're different things, but like my mix of the live version, there's just something, there's something to do with the fact that like when you by the time you release a song, like you still don't really know it. You haven't really had time to like, you might have you work in the studio, you're writing it, you're piecing it together. It's this very kind of fragmented thing. It's wonderful, but and then you mix it, and there's all the feedback, and you sort of dial it in, and then it gets mastered, and the whole thing is it's wonderful, and I'm very proud of it. But it's a very different thing. It's been on this long, quite kind of fussy journey, and then it's released, and basically the doors close. It's like, that's it, that's the song. You can't change the key, you can't change the speed, you can't. It's frozen, it's locked in. And then you're like, okay, let's deal with the live version, and you get this kind of distance and this clarity on it, which is just wonderful. And you distill it into kind of, like I was saying before, we don't need that little ambient part. It's going to get lost in the mix. So we just play what's needed. And then you run all of those into an interface to record it for these video things. And I mix that. And there's just this sense of like, whoa, there's really been like a taking stock, rather than it being a product of this kind of ongoing creative writing, production, arrangement process, which yields great results, but a very different result. Like, okay, that's over. The song is what it is. We're on stage. We've got these tools at our disposal. Then we play it. You record that, and I mix that, and I'm like, whoa! It's even clearer. You know what I mean? So like, often, and I don't know how to feel about it. I should be like, oh, that's great. You're in a race with yourself. And then sometimes I'm like, yeah, but the drums don't sound like that when I play it on Spotify now. So,
oh my
anyways,
god, Can I tell you just like a little side story? I worked on this project with Björk for nearly 3 years called Biophilia, and our legit plan for about 2 years of it was to record the album in one day once the album was finished.
Wow, did you do that?
No, we did not, but it was a great concept, so it's kind of nice to see in a way like you get to do this, you know, and even, you know, like, other bands I work with where you have that ridiculously long process and something's being pulled in and out, then you just see it live and it's like, okay, takes on a whole
but it's also it's like you say, it's a fade is down, and it's kind of like, you know, that excitement when you were young of like reorganizing your bedroom. You know, it's just like, okay, screw all that, I'm gonna put the bed on the other side and move the furniture around and stuff. It's sort of that feeling as well. It's like you've got this ongoing process, then you mix it, then you master it, and all the recalls, all the notes, and then it comes out and it's fantastic, really proud of it. And then it's like, all right, now let's start again, building this for the live show. So I think everyone's always looking for that kind of fresh start, and that's what you get with the live version.
Cool. And like you vibe off it. It's not like, oh fuck, here we go again. Like it gives you a fresh kick with it.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I definitely wasn't like, you know, growing up. We're all first and foremost interested and want to be spending our time writing, recording, producing, arranging, and performing music. That's the main thing. And this whole like technical aspect of the live show, it's like all of the other things. It's like Felix's role in the band and Carlos's role in the band that they've spoken to you about. It's just things that needed dealing with that we didn't necessarily want or could afford or trust someone else to do. And so all of us, you know, kind of just lent towards, you know, different skills and different things to do, and my thing definitely became not just the studio production, but like the live show. There just needed to be someone who is willing to go there and learn about, you know, MIDI program changes and and redundancy rigs that we can't afford, and you know, just and latency and all of these things. So it's definitely just something that I gravitated towards, and it's very satisfying when it works. Like it's you know, we've got quite an involved rig, and yeah, it sucks setting up, and it sucks loading out of a venue. But when it's all set up and you walk on stage and you're just like, this is so cool. Like, look at, you know, if I turn this fader, the bass player's synth goes through these pedals in front of me, and it's just this like, it's really satisfying when it works. But it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of maintenance, and it's a lot of learning. But I definitely don't see it as a chore. If that was what maybe you were getting at, that it was kind of something that like, okay, I've also got to do this, which is outside of my creative performative role in the band. It's like, I really relish it. And I feel like I'm definitely the lucky one in the band, because my sort of extracurricular role is still very much music. I'm here like talking to a bunch of music fans and producers about it. And you know, whereas like what Carlos has to do is like, it's very managerial. It's very to do with like the music business and stuff. And he's fantastic at it, but it's he often says it's so far away from writing music or what he'd like to be doing. You see what I mean?
I see what you mean.
So I'm very lucky.
You are very
I'm the lucky
awesome.
one.
And were you like in this world early on? Were you like just playing instruments, and then did you think, well, okay, maybe I better start recording something, or how did that naturally unfold that you were the one in production?
I'm kind of like going way back. So like me, Carlos, and the bass player have been in a band or various bands together since we were 13. Since we were at school, since we were very, very young. And we, it was guitar, indie, rock and roll music then. And then, we really got into like Radiohead and Kid A and Fortet and Square Pusher and Aphex Twin and all this electronic music when we were like 15, 16. And through getting excited about that music, you get excited about how it's made. And so you start trying to buy synths and samplers and stuff like that. And it's this weird thing where like, like a bit like Brian Eno, he's like the keyboard player in the band. But then through the fact that he was having to deal with something that had like knobs and electricity rather than the drummer, he basically became, through a keyboard, it became a studio. Do you see what I mean? Like it pulls you into that world. And I think that was definitely the case with us, that we kind of got really into electronic music, as well as all sorts of other, more acoustic music, and got the instruments involved in that. And then through that, I'm just trying to think, like, when this band started 5 years ago, there was definitely a sense of like all of us were doing everything. So like all of us were sort of figuring out the live show and figuring out like the business side of it and whatever. And I think now we've much more fallen into our sort of roles, and we all collaborate and advise each other, but we've definitely sort of have our territories, and my responsibilities like production, mixing, and basically anything that makes a sound, I've got to deal with that.
Okay, awesome.
And I don't think it was something that changed, or like, oh God, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like I've always been interested and excited about it. There's certain things that, where it's very specific to like live show security. If you start being like, I'm going to have to build an AB rig, that isn't very creative or exciting or whatever. That's just spending loads of money because of fear, which I understand why people do it. But it's like, one day if we get to a certain level, I'm going to have to deal with that probably, and I don't sort of relish that side of it. But I love the sort of, how can we make this work? How can we pull this off? How can we represent this production that was made without giving a damn about how many people were on stage and what equipment they had? And how can we kind of make it work? Sometimes you need to play what was a synth on a guitar, and you've got to dial in that sound. It's a wicked challenge with, I say limitations, as you can see from the video there. We've got a lot of stuff, so we're not that limited, but it's limited to a degree.
Awesome. Yeah. And just a quick kind of productivity nerd question. You were mentioning before, like all of you were kind of doing everything. Do you feel like, since you guys more like really clearly delineated like areas of responsibility, do you feel that's helped the band as a whole move forward more quickly, or help you all make more progress?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's not like, we are a DIY machine, as people call us, but like, we have agents and we have tour managers and we have certain people, but it's like, I guess on the core big things, it is a DIY thing. And I think there's definitely a sense where we work faster, where it's like, okay, Felix, we've got a record coming out and the vinyl needs to be manufactured through the factory, pressing plant, whatever. We need all this merchandise made or whatever. Then he kind of goes and does the legwork on that, and then he can come back and say, hey guys, okay, we need a decision, like, what do we want to do with this? And it's the same with me. As I said, like, we just finished a bunch of music over October, which is coming out this year, and I spent like 4 or 5 weeks or something like that over Christmas and New Year just programming this. And then it's great because it's like, oh, we've got some shows coming up, and it's like, okay, I've done this, rather than like all of us having to kind of wait till we're all together in order to achieve things. Right. We can achieve things kind of separately up to a point and then come together. So I think it's definitely more productive. Yeah.
Very nicely said. All right, listen, before we jump off, super nerd questions. So Zach, Siavi Music in the chat is asking, and I think he's asked this a couple of times earlier, so Zach, sorry for waiting on this one. He just wants to nerd out on synths with you. So do you have favorite, or both favorite and dream synths?
Well, okay, I mean, I should say now that, like, because I can see behind you, Damien, that you've got all the modular going on, and like, I haven't even like played around on them. I'm so daunted by it. It's like this big. It's like watching The Sopranos. I know I need to do it. I haven't done it yet. I'm waiting until I've got loads of free time. Like I've injured myself. I'm in hospital or something, and I can just watch The Sopranos. This modular synthesis is the same. One day I will do it, but I haven't got around to it. So I'm looking forward to that. And I feel like I'd come across as a really discerning head if I were able to talk about that. But I've got much more into like synths, building my own instruments on Ableton, and like effects pedal units and effects racks and stuff like that. I love the Dave Smith instruments or sequential Prophet synths. I love the saw waves on that. I love having lots of LFOs. Like something I love to do, which probably sounds quite basic, but like when I first did it, I was like, this is so cool, is having a LFO on the pitch of a synth, moving the pitch up and down quite slowly and by a small amount. But then I would have an LFO on the rate, another LFO LFOing the rate of that first one. So you get this beautiful thing of the vibrato changing speed, and it might not change speed in an even way. It might jump from like quivering to very slow kind of VHS drag and sort of jump around while you're playing, and it won't sound like a kind of weird jolted thing. It will just give it this kind of woozy quality. So anyway, I love I love our Dave Smiths that we use, the Mofo, the sequencer on that, and the Prophet 8 is great. In terms of a dream synth, if we're geeking up. Oh, sorry, another one I should say is the Korg Delta, which is like a 70s synth that we have in the studio, and it's great. We've tried to get it repaired, and basically you get about 2 minutes of playing on it, and then the synth just goes like a battery, like sounds like a battery's died. And it's quite cool because it means that like if someone's like, hey, I'm turning on the Korg Delta, it's like, you better have something to play and record it now, like because it's gonna cut out and it won't work until the next day. So I love the Korg Delta as a synth. In terms of a dream synth, I've always loved the Rhodes Chroma. So like I think I've got this right. It's like Fender Rhodes of Fender Rhodes keyboard. They made this really heavy, and they go for like £8,000 or £9,000 dollars. Really involved thing that had like this kind of huge expansion units. I just think it looks cool. I mean, maybe it's not very popular, maybe it's not got the best sounds in it. But Rhodes Chroma is always something I occasionally like look up on Reverb and be like, oh yeah, there is one going. I'll never be able to afford that. I'll have to. It's either that or a house one day, which I won't have either.
Oh my god, yeah, either synths or houses. Which one? Oh my god.
Yeah.
Both of which are NFTs, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, and listen, before we wrap up, so everyone, if there's any other questions on there, like get them in the chat. But like you guys had a new track, Just Another Dream, which came out a day or two ago. Anything you can share about maybe like the production process on that? We didn't really talk too much about the studio side, but was there, and even like with any of these new ones, is there anything you've been kind of pushing into as a producer or trying to achieve more, or any like new breakthroughs you could share with us?
So the new song that's just come out, Just Another Dreamer, was from a session where we went out into the middle of nowhere in France in October to the same place where we'd recorded our first album, which came out a year ago. And we went out to the middle of nowhere in France with all of our gear, built a studio with a fantastic engineer called Tom Archer, who's worked on some amazing records as an engineer like Little Sims and I think Salt and other stuff like that. And he brought like an amazing knowledge of like input capture, if you like, because like I'm the producer, but like my knowledge about mics and mic positioning and stuff is not quite as, or my skill rather there is not so hot. Where my skill lies is like post, in terms of what do you do with it afterwards once it's in. But so this engineer Tom, brought like amazing knowledge, amazing mics, amazing mic preamps, knowledge about how to record things. So that was a huge breakthrough for us to be able to like get this extra expertise, set of ears, wisdom to work with him. And we basically set up 3 studios in this house in France. We had the big room where Tom was like recording drums and recording people. And then everything that was recorded that day would go upstairs to like Studio B, which was my room with my synth rig and my pedals and my effects. and Ableton, and I would basically work on the day before's music, and then in the evening show it to people. And then Carlos also had a third studio where it was just like a piano in Ableton, and he was able to like work on some writing and stuff. And it would involve a lot of like phone calls every like 45 minutes. So like, hey everyone, we all need to come back together in the same room. Are we happy with the snare drum? Yes. Okay, great. Bye. I'll see you at lunch.
Wow.
It was very much
Wow, what
like
an amazing setup.
Yeah, it was
great, yeah.
really, really cool, and we'd never done that before. It allowed people to like achieve things in parallel rather than like sometimes it sucks in the studio where everyone's just sort of sat behind someone at the computer just sort of waiting to make a suggestion or whatever. So that was really cool. And Just Another Dreamer and the last song, Everything Before Us, that came up before that, they were both from that recording session. So I think, it was definitely like fantastic to work, on drum sounds and stuff with Tom, and just get results that we hadn't got before in like 5 years of recording music, which was wonderful. I'm just trying to think about like, is there anything? What I'm quite happy about, I spent lockdown sampling like all of the gear in our studio. And I could talk for 10 hours to you about sampling, because I love it. I love Ableton samplers. I love the randomization and the ways that you can really humanize things. So I'd sampled like everything in our studio, from like my cello, because I used to play the cello, guitars, harmonics, synths, every single note of a synth. I'm starting to sound crazy. Accordions, literally little music box, wind up music box. I'd like wind it up really slowly, so like record every single note. And then it was great because just on your laptop, me or Carlos could just have a whole studio of equipment. You could be on a flight and you'd have access to it. And on this record, because I had done it over lockdown, sampling everything, a lot of those instruments are used. In fact, pretty much like a lot of the synth sounds are like sampled sound sources and instruments that I'd made. So in Just Another Dreamer, like all of those synth sounds that you hear throughout it, I had sampled over lockdown, which was great because it made it feel like it wasn't a waste of time to sit there recording like every note really long. And if it was like a dynamic instrument, it's like, okay, a piano, I need to play every note, quiet, medium, and loud, and I want 3 of each of those so that the sampler can randomly choose. Take a long time, but I love doing it. And I just, and I know it's probably not as good as Spitfire or the Labs or whatever, but like I like that it's mine. I like that I know that if you play this note, you can hear a bit of bird song feeding through the mic, which shouldn't be there, but it's mine. And yeah, I really like that. So that is something that I can say about Just Another Dreamer, is that it's us accessing our studio from afar through the magic of sampling.
That's wild, man. I love it. All right, well, listen, a couple more questions from the chat. Maria Tricks up in Finland is just, you're a multi-instrumentalist. How many or what instruments can you or do you play? And then actually that can parallel in with Zach's question as well, which is like, do you have a specific instrument that you like to start writing on?
Right, so I played the cello growing up. That was my main thing, and then took on the guitar and the piano, and I sing a bit. So it's not that many, because also I don't think I could play like anything on the cello to you now. So really, it's just what I do in this band at the shows, which is guitar and piano and and some singing. I think the piano is the best thing to write on. I just find it visually shows me harmony better than the guitar, which I guess is what I'm going to compare it to, because I think what I like about the guitar is that I find myself more likely to stumble upon something by accident on the guitar, because for example, if you strum 6 strings and you're strumming 6 strings all the time and you're only fretting 2 or 3 of them and you're kind of moving that shape around, you end up with a lot of these like crunchy chords because you're moving things but some other notes are just staying the same, like the top strings of the guitar. And so you end up with these kind of surprising, interesting colors and chords and chord progressions, sometimes that you don't necessarily understand as soon as you've written it. So I like the guitar for that, but I often find it's easy to get lost and sort of not to know where you are. I feel like on the piano, creatively, for writing music, it's great because you don't get lost, and you can I know my way around, I guess. Not that I'm a particularly good Not that I'm a particularly good piano. Not that I'm a particularly good pianist. But I'm definitely not a good piano.
It's all right, man. You're among
Not
friends.
playing.
You can let it out. You can share all those insecurities.
Yeah. Not that I'm a good piano. No, but
Oh.
not that I'm a good pianist. But I definitely, I feel like I know where I am with harmony on a piano. And I feel I don't think that's that rare. I feel like I share that with a lot of people.
Nice. Can we just say, thanks so much to Jamie for coming on. I'm assuming everybody by now has been rinsing Low Island Records non-stop since December, but even more so now that we're all doing this remix competition together. Jamie, the new track is out a couple of days ago. So does anyone need links, or we're all hip to Low Island at this point, right? So I guess it's worth saying, everyone, please make sure that you are telling your friends. You're bumping Low Island in your car, all that good stuff. And Jamie, you're going to be back with us in 5 days, not 7 days time, with the rest of your band. We're going to have the massive listening party to everyone's remixes, which I can't wait for. And by then you'll be a Twitch veteran. Zach is saying,
absolutely.
He's saying I probably
We
played
can't wait.
Feel Young Again over 1,000 times last summer. Cool. All right. So great to have you on here. And as mentioned, everyone, we didn't talk that much about the studio, but I can't thank you enough for really just being so open and sharing all the nitty-gritty details of how you're achieving this live. I think we might try and get this interview up onto YouTube as well so people can find it in the future. If that's all right with you. It's all about sharing the trade secrets and stuff.
Absolutely, as long as it doesn't have the bit where my headphones fell out. Yeah. I'm kidding. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, okay. We'll put that up as a TikTok or something like that. All right, everyone. So we've hit start raid. So Jamie will still hang out. I'll have a little chat with you after we finish up. Everyone is ready over there. Cool. Yeah, that bit's going on Insta. All right, everyone. So we'll see you all next week. As don't forget, of course, on the Complete Producer Network, if you have any questions about this, we can answer those in there. The submission form will go live on Monday, but at the start of the stream on Wednesday, the listening party, I will come on early and help you all make sure that all of your stuff is submitted nicely. So there's no rush if you see that submission form live. But anyhow, let's go raid the next men. We'll see you all later.
See you later. I'm looking forward to the remix competition.
All right, man. Hey, we hope you enjoyed that video. A couple of more links here for some talks we think you'll like. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and otherwise head over to completeproducer.net so that you can connect with other music making geniuses from all over the world. We'll see you there.